The buzz is building here in Green Bay with the NFL Draft just minutes away. Titans President of Football Operations Chad Brinker actually cut his teeth as a scout here with the Packers. Now he's overseeing the Titans process in the NFL Draft back here in Green Bay with a potentially franchise-changing #1 overall pick on the way. They've made their decision, and Brinker sat down with me this week to discuss how they got there.
We're very thorough. That left no stone unturned. We met with every touch point throughout, from going all the way back to the fall. And then you fast forward to January, where you got the All-Star games, you got the Combine, you got the pro days, you got the 30 visits, you got the private workouts. I mean, we've gone through it all, and we've just gotten to a spot where we feel like, you know, we know where we're going with this, and we're excited about it.
The quote-unquote experts believe that pick will be Cam Ward. I know you won't give that away, but you've certainly done your due diligence. What did you learn about Cam during that process?
The first thing you do is you watch the tape, and we got to see the type of player that he was on tape. It's well documented. 0-star recruit, goes to Incarnate Word, elevates that program. Transfers to Washington State, elevates that program. He goes to Miami, elevates that program. He was up for the Heisman last year. And you saw that he had the physical traits, but it's just decision-making in a matter of split seconds that separate the really good. So my point is, it's a neck-up position. And that's probably the part of the process of going through with Cam, is really understanding who he was and who he is as a leader, how he is on the field, how he processes information, and that was really impressive. He passed all those tests.
Chad, you know everybody's big on comps when it comes to NFL draft prospects, and I've heard more than once, Cam reminds people of Steve McNair. And around here, that perks people's ears and eyes up. What do you see when you turn on the film?
To be honest, I think as scouts, you get in trouble when you start comparing guys to other players. Even earlier in my career, I wrote a report, and you kind of compare him to a player, then the player turns out not being very good, and you don't look very smart in that moment. So we try to stay away from those comparisons. If we were to go quarterback at #1, there's high enough expectations there, let alone to compare a player to Steve McNair. But, you know, we're hopeful when you're picking there that you're picking the next great one.
You made the difficult decision to part ways with Harold Landry. Everybody says this draft is deep at the edge position. How much did the ability to get a guy there who could maybe fill that role play into that decision?
You know, you need players that can protect the quarterback, which is your tackles, and you need players that can get after the quarterback, whether it's interior or on the outside off the edge. So that's obviously a really important position. It's a premium position in the National Football League. Parting ways with Harold was not an easy decision, because I've talked a lot about this draft and development. Harold was one of those players that was drafted by this organization. He was developed by this organization. He was ultimately rewarded by this organization. And when you get in tough times like we were in last year, guys like Harold, Jeff Simmons, they play harder for the organization because it means so much to them. And we want to add more players like that to our roster, that we homegrown, that we draft, we develop, and ultimately we reward them.
Wide receiver is another obvious position of need. As you go into the draft, how important is it to find guys that can be day-one contributors?
That's a tough position to come in the NFL right off the bat and just burst on the scene. Sure, there's the Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons of the world, but in my experience, in my years in Green Bay, I can think back to whether it was Greg Jennings or Jordy Nelson or Randall Cobb or Devontae Adams. It took a few years for those guys to actually take off. It's not an easy position just to come in and make a huge impact, but there are players that are doing it now. I think maybe with the way college football has gone, all the way back to the high school level, that there's just more players that are coming in more prepared.
You guys have expressed the interest of gaining more picks, both in quality and number, for future drafts, but you also only have 2 picks in the first 3 rounds in this draft. How will you balance a potential opportunity to accumulate assets versus moving up to get a really quality player this year?
We'll look and see where we are on day 2. There will be a few players that may be identified, like, look, if they're there at 35, we're not moving. They're impact players. We see them as impact players. Now, if you're able to move back, say, and you have a cluster of players that you like, then you're willing to move back because you feel like you got a cluster of players that someone's going to be there that you like. You pick up an additional pick, which is an additional player that you can add to your roster. So, you know, you want to do that.
Chad, a lot of it has been made about the hierarchy of football here over the past few years. Yeah. With the changes in this offseason and the new hierarchy, why should Titans fans trust the process you just went through to get ready for this draft?
Well, I think because it's proven. Mike comes from Kansas City, runs the same process. I come from Green Bay. I mean, that organization has been successful for the last 30 years. As far as the hierarchy is concerned, this league continues to evolve, and you're starting to see a trend that there are teams that are adopting that model because they understand that we want our general manager to have the time they need to have to evaluating these prospects instead of being pulled away in all these other directions. It allows Mike to do what he does best. Still consider myself a scout, even though I know I have other duties and roles and responsibilities, and my career's evolved over time. But I can also help in that area, which makes it probably a little bit more unique than other organizations. But I was sitting in that room one night, and I was looking around the room with Mike, myself, Reggie, and Dave. Between the four of us, there's 9 Super Bowl championships. You add Brian Callahan into that, there's another one. We've seen what winning football looks like. Now, we have to perform just like a player does. This is a performance-based business, so we all got to perform. And ultimately, we want to do what is best for the Tennessee Titans.
Lastly, you face a tall climb in a league that is often not very patient. When you get done this weekend, how will you grade your selections based off of the foundation you hope to lay for the winning team?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You never really know how a draft class is going to perform until a few years later down the line. It's not an exact science. There's going to be mistakes made, but when we hit, we got to hit big.
We'll see what Brinker and crew can get done with 8 picks this weekend, but just 2 in the first 2 days. Guys, you mentioned it, huge gap from 35 to 103. We'll see if that changes.